Hey guys, just a heads up, I kind of screw out my settings on my microphone, so I'm going to sound a little distant and maybe a little echoey. I tried my best to fix it, but I can only do so much. Also, stay tuned to the end of the episode where I talk about Scott W.'s new Kickstarter being relaunched. I also have a promo for another podcast by the name of Billowing Hilltop, so stay tuned till the end to take a listen. Hello, RP people, and welcome back to another episode of Role Playing as Smart People, the podcast where we pretend to know what we're talking about when it comes to all things tabletop. My name is Santa, and thanks for tuning in again. Joining me, as always, I have Mr. Finder. Say hello.
Howdy.
So on today's episode, we're going away from our normal formula of just talking about tabletop stuff, and we decided to have a little conversation. About what? Well, it's about the friends we've lost along the way. Not because they've died or anything, but because, well, scheduling conflicts, table groups that just don't work, the rude people that you just want to kick out of the party, all that kind of stuff. I think we all have about 10,000 stories on if you've been playing for any period of time. So I figured, hell, why don't we talk about that? So now, Finder, I know you're one of the few lucky ones who has had a core group for a long time. I know we've talked about it before, but you want to just kind of talk about how lucky you are for that kind of perspective.
I am fairly charmed when it comes to finding friends to game with.
So jealous.
Well, I've got one group that I've been playing with for well over 20 years. It's probably closer to 25, 26 years now. Started out as just work friends, and we started playing Deadlands, like the Classic Edition. Deadlands Classic back in the day, and I lost touch with them for a little bit of time when I moved to New Jersey, and they were still in Arizona. And this predates any like VTT or Zoom stuff, and that's how long ago that was. They ended up moving to New Jersey, so I got to play with them again real quickly. I mean, it was like less than a year that I wasn't able to play with them, but then when I moved, by that point, fortunately, the internet was around and broadband, and we started using an old VTT, like probably the first I'd ever seen, called OpenRPG. I believe it's still around. It's not being developed much anymore. It was an open system that was based off of Python, and that was how we managed to keep gaming. By that point, we had started playing Savage Worlds, and so I needed to learn a little bit about Python so I could code a card dealer, and we could do some Savage Worlds games because, as we know, Savage Worlds uses cards for initiative. And so we did that for years. I mean, we used OpenRPG for a long time. And then some guy was looking for a group, so we said, yeah, sure. Brought him in. He recommended that we try Roll20. We tried Roll20 and had a great time there, and that had all the support that I didn't have to write Python code anymore, so we made the switch. And the funny thing about that group, though, is we've had like a handful of people come in, and for whatever reason, they just don't jive with the way we play, or something. I mean, they end up disappearing, falling off, whatever it is. But it's like me and my two friends have stuck around, but we've had like a rotation of odd people we just don't know, and they come and go. And so anyway, that's like my first group. Then I also have my kids that I play with, so I've got that regular group.
That's why you have kids, though, right?
Exactly.
So you can eventually play. You know where they are.
Exactly. Well, and it's a great way to just have a lot of fun because, again, we play Savage Worlds, and they say, "Hey, Dad, we want to play like squirrels and rabbits," and I'm like, "Okay, great. Savage Worlds can handle that." So we just go and play a squirrels and rabbits game, and then they'd want to do straight up fantasy with orcs and elves, and it was just a lot of fun because they'd bring their friends along and had a good time doing that. Um, I even on Roll 20, I've always found groups fairly easily, even though they talk about like the looking for group forums
Yeah.
are you can like I see posts all the time from people. It's like I can't get into a game. It's like I post on 20 different boards and I can't get into a game. I'm like I post on one, immediately get in. And the first time I did that, the first group that I did I was like just looking through the looking for group to see what's going on, and some guy was wanting to get into a Savage Worlds um, sci-fi game, and some dude said, "Sure, I'll GM that." And I might go, if you guys have room, I'll be happy to play. And that group has actually been playing every Saturday now for the past 6 years, um, with brief hiatuses here and there for various life struggles that come up. But I mean, we've never gone more than a few months without playing, um, and that's like my Saturday group. I think of all the groups, I've only had one that completely fell apart, and that was a pickup round. It was kind of like a what do they call it, West Marches type game. So people would join when they could, and the guy that was DMing that ended up having life show up and fell off the face of there. So I have no idea whatever happened to that game, but yeah, I mean, for
Yeah.
the most part, I have a pretty easy time getting into groups. And the great thing is, most of the groups that I get into, we just click. I mean, heck, that's how I met Scott, and he was like wanting to run a game one time, or one shot on Roll 20, and I said, "Yeah, I'm available. I'd be happy to check it out." And Scott and I started playing, and then later on, he did the whole Eberron thing, and that's how you and I, of course, met.
Yep.
And even though we don't play as frequently as a group because of our life schedules,
Oh yeah.
the groups stuck around, and we've had a good time. And when we can play, we do play. So yeah,
Yeah.
I have a charmed life when it comes to gaming groups.
Yeah. Like I've had some luck, but not to the extent of you. Like I my original group was we started off with GURPS and then we switched over to 5e, right? And then we were playing for a while, but it was just like, I forget what happened, but I think one of the guys went back to school or DM, and then we kind of just we were talking about it, and then it was just like, oh no, I got to cancel. It just kind of happened, and then eventually, kind of just people stopped asking, are we having a group, and it kind of just fell apart. I've heard that they've joined up a few times to play, but I don't think any of the campaigns have really lasted too long. Although I might be wrong. Um, and then I had a buddy who was playing in that group who was from work, and he was one of my favorite people to play games with at the time. Of course, I got you now, Finder, so he's to the past, but he had kids and essentially dropped off the map completely. So kind of lost him there, and then he was selfish and had a second kid, so then he was gone for
uh,
even longer. Ugh, I
Hate those
know.
guys. Hate
I
those
know.
guys.
Like, why wouldn't he ask me first if it was okay? That's all I asked.
Well, it's kind of funny. After my divorce, when I was dating my current wife,
Yeah.
one of the things that we had a hard conversation about, I told him, like, look, just so you know, I like to game, and I've got games on these days, and I'm not interested in giving those games up. And she's like, that's cool. And so I made sure that she was cool with it, and she is. I mean, she's really supportive of stuff as long as I give her equal time. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, it was pretty funny because I'm like, I don't want to bail on these games. I'm having a good time. They're fun games. And they're fun people, and it's like, well, heck, I mean, like the Saturday group that you've been playing in lately.
Yeah.
Um, that group was my first truly international group. I
Yeah.
mean, the GM is from England. Uh, Another guy is from Canada. Um, Rogan was from Arizona, which was my old stomping grounds.
Yeah.
There was a guy from Texas. And I mean, when you think of that Saturday group, it's like the GM, myself, and the other Canadian. We are we've been together since the beginning. Actually,
Hmm.
the Canadian was a pickup after the first. So like we had one game. One of the guys dropped out, and that's when the other guy got brought in. And Rogan. I mean, Rogan was there at the beginning as well. He had dropped off for a period of time because of life and
Yeah.
all that. But yeah, I mean, it's been a pretty good group because we've stuck it out. We've done a lot of games. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, and even I've joined that group right now, and like we're having a ton of fun. I'm glad it's on Saturdays because even speaking of that, like we try and game on Wednesdays, of course, like with me, you, and Scott. But even that's kind of difficult because we're, you know, Scott's military, right? And he has all these things going on. You like you're flying to Las Vegas tomorrow. I now all of a sudden with my job that makes money, since I don't make money off of the podcast just yet. I have to move to evenings in order to solidify a position, so it's like we're having a lot of troubles, and like I feel like it's so brutal because I love playing with you guys, and it's just time always seems to, like, your obligations in real life always seem to get in the way of your make believe life, which
Yeah.
to be fair it should, but like it's hard to try and make time, and I'm glad I have the Saturday game with you guys. And even like I was debating for a bit, like, oh, should I maybe opt out because my whole sleeping schedule is gonna be thrown off, but I just really don't want to. Like I need to have at least a game somewhere in my life. And
Well, we need to have
yeah,
some sanity, and fantasy brings us that sanity.
exactly. It's that little break from reality that you kind of need, where you come to the table and have everyone just kind of playing a fun game. You all come with the same intentions and everything. Like most of the time, there's of course some bad eggs, which we'll probably get into. Um, but yeah,
Well,
yeah, it's
though, in terms of the history of RPGs,
yeah,
this day and age is the best for groups. Because I mean, like I said, I've been gaming since the late '70s, early '80s. My brothers got me into it. They were my original gaming group, and I'd go play with my older brother and his friends for years, and that was a lot of fun. Had a great time with those guys. But the internet was not what it is. Even with my the what I call my core group now on Fridays, um, when I moved to New Jersey, there was no VTT option.
yeah,
And now, as long as people are willing to, and I think this is probably the big piece of it, is that you've got to be willing to commit. But if you can
oh yeah,
commit to a group, there are there are opportunities to play with people from completely different backgrounds, completely different time zones, because we can get together on the internet at times that suit us. And so,
hmm,
like, it's early in the morning for me on Saturdays. For the GM, it's in the afternoon, evenings. For you guys, it's a little bit earlier than it is for me,
yeah,
but it's a time that suits all of us in our lives for the different time zones. And so it's like, if people are struggling to find a group, there are also tons of places to go now. I mean, Reddit, you can go to find a group. Discord has various servers for like Foundry. A lot of people can find games on Foundry through Discord, or Roll20 has the looking for group forums. So there are just so many options and opportunities for people to find groups.
yeah.
The struggle now truly is finding a group that you can mesh with personality wise.
And I think that's kind of the biggest thing, because like I've gotten lucky with some groups, like partially, and even like our group when we started, we had that one guy in there who you can tell was interested in telling his story and only his story.
Yep.
And when things weren't working his way, he got mad at the DM, and then he just dipped out when he didn't like the answer.
Yeah.
And even like I've mentioned this one before, like I had another group where we're doing and I always get I'm saying this, and every time I say it, I always hear a groan from you guys, and I understand that groan. But Monster Hearts, uh, which we're playing Monster Hearts. God, I feel embarrassed even saying that I was playing it, to
You
be
should.
honest.
You should.
But
And that's me. I like have no idea. I've never even played Monster Hunter, so I have no clue what it's about.
it's teenage angst combined with them being monsters secretly, like werewolves, vampires, and all that kind of shit. And the only reason why I went into it is because the premise of it, because I was on a PBTA server on Discord. The premise of it was cool enough that I was like, you know what, this would be a fun role playing experience because we're literally doing almost like theater kids, which kind of works with usually any people who want to role play. Uh, Theater kids trying to put on a play, and it's a whole drama building up to the play day. And when the play is actually about to be aired, that's the last episode. And it was a really cool premise, and like we all kind of created interesting characters, and we got to pick like what kind of role we had and everything like that. And the GM, she was fantastic. She knew what she was doing, so like we ended up creating an entire drama class and also our own homeroom class with all the schools and all that stuff, and all the characters felt real. Like she was really good at doing all that stuff. And at the end, the reason why I kind of died was because there's this one girl who, no matter how much you tried to give her, the only answer she'd ever say is, I don't know. And then she would roll a dice to see what her answer would be. But sometimes she'd roll and she's like, I still don't know. I'm like, well, what were you rolling the dice for? And she's like, well, I was going to do stuff and put like, things on it. Like, if I roll lower, I'd get this, but then I didn't do it. I'm like, what the fuck is the point of doing that, man? What the hell was the point of doing that? And then she was totally complacent with everything. And the only thing that she thought this is a hill to goddamn die on was the fact that unless you're playing a game in a third person or first person view, there was no other point, and all the other games should not exist. Diablo, oh, that uses that's an outdated like way to play games. They shouldn't even make them anymore. 2D games, why would you ever make those anymore? I'm like, God, that's like 90% of my Steam library is platformers right now. Like, I don't understand how people can believe this. Like, even one of the best, like me and the wifey have been playing this game on a server for couple weeks now, where I'm now starting to get really hooked into it, which don't tell her that because she's the person who binges. So, dear, if you're listening to this, I'm not talking about the game you're thinking of. So, close your ears for a second. Okay. I think she calls them Project Zomboid. Oh, so good. But yeah, and that one's like a 2.5, and it's just a zombie simulator, but it's just so much fun. But and then I'm trying to think. I've had a few bad eggs in my time, but I think that one was the most memorable. Yeah. And then I remember once I had a really good time with the group and everything like that. We're playing superheroes. It was Savage Supers, right? And that one was a lot of fun. But I ended up kind of opting out because my time schedule is getting a little bit too busy, and I just didn't, even though I was having fun, I didn't like the way that the game was going. If that makes any sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, and
Because,
there are times when the game idea or the concept just doesn't jive.
yeah, because like we started off and it was like superheroes for hire, which I really liked that one. And the first large campaign was a lot of fun. But then, like in the second one, like the second campaign, we got teleported to like a fantasy world with all like, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves and like and it just started going a little bit off the rails for me. And I was just like, this isn't what I really signed up for. So speaking of kind of like even like Roll20 and signing up for a game, do you have any tips for anyone who's kind of like looking at like a description of a game and thinking, would I like this or not? Do you have any tips for like really kind of weeding through the games where you're like, okay, maybe you should pass on this one?
I pass on most things because I weigh against what I currently have on my plate, and is this game interesting enough to capture my interest that it could potentially supplant one of my other games? Because we all have limited time and we have other responsibilities, right? I mean, I've got a family, I've got work, I've got my own personal projects that I want to work on. And so trying to weed things out, uh, there have been times when I've considered doing a one shot game just to see what it's like. But why do I pass on them? A lot of times because the GM sounds kind of pretentious to me. It's like there's like this one forum post on Roll20. I keep seeing it, DM extraordinaire. I'm like, really?
Oh yeah, if you hear someone say DM extraordinary, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's a paid game, and I know a lot of people are against paid games. I get it. We started out with it being a bunch of friends, and it's a hobby that you get together and you play. Um, but in today's day and age, I mean, not everybody can find a group of friends,
Yeah.
and so a paid game isn't bad. I mean, it's not. I'm not against them. I look at them like, you want to charge $15 for a 4 hour session. Uh, that seems to be a little higher than I may want to pay. If the concept is cool, I might. Because I look at like, I pay more than that to go to a movie.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I'm not really against paid like paid GMs. Um in fact, it's probably they'll probably be more invested in it at the same time, and you
Mhm.
kind of know, you hope you're getting quality, right? Like at the end of the day, you never really fully know the quality that someone is able to GM on just based off of, them saying, "Hey, pay me money to do it," right?
Yeah.
But if they got a lot of repeat customers, like I think it could be beneficial. So, but I kind of agree with you on where, you know what, I'm not opposed to it. Like I think the GM should never have to bring snacks to the table. Like even like in a real game, which I haven't had like one in person in ages. I'm not gonna lie, but I don't think the GM should ever have to bring their own booze, and I don't think they should ever have to bring their own food.
See, and that's what
Right?
I do miss that in a real life game. Like when I lived in New
Yeah.
Jersey, my friends and I, it was a party. I mean, we would get together at like 6 o'clock in the evening. We would all bring, like, I would go and pick up uh, Toby's, which was like this really janky hot dog stand, but they had the best hot dogs, the best cheesesteaks. Oh my goodness, they had the best milkshakes. So good. And I would take that for my dinner, but we would all bring snacks. Even the GM. I mean, the guy that is hosting the game, we just meet at his house, and they'd always have like pizza rolls or whatever. And throughout the night, we were just constantly throwing in wings and pizza rolls and whatever. But everybody contributed. It was a lot of fun. It was just a
Yeah.
big party, and it was great times. Now, and I will tell you that the relationship that I have with people will also tend to influence whether or not I do a game. So, as an example, there are games that don't interest me. I'm not a huge supers guy. I'm not a huge Vampire the Masquerade guy. However, if my friends wanted to play that because I like my friends and I want to spend time with my friends, I would be willing to play that game. Even though it's not my cup of tea, I will jump in and I'll have a good time with my friends because honestly, about half the time of playing for me and that group of friends, about half the time is out of character, out of game BSing, just catching up and ripping on somebody when they're talking about when we have rules arguments or debates or whatever. Um, we'll just have a great time socializing as friends. And so for that sort of thing, I mean, even with you and Scott, if you wanted to do supers, and I'd be willing to play it. I don't care. Um,
Oh yeah, even Scott has that one system he kind of built that he wants to test out
yeah,
eventually.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I'd totally be willing to do that, even though it well. And I will say that I trust Scott. He's a great GM, so I've
Oh
never
yeah.
had a bad game with Scott, and I've learned some things from the way that he GMs that I try to bring into my own GMing. And that's the other thing with a lot of my groups as well is we like with my what I refer to as my core group. We rotate about every six
Yeah.
months. We change GMs, and so we're doing a different genre. We're doing a different setting. We're doing different characters. And when it comes back around to me, if I decide I don't want to continue the campaign that I had started, I'll switch campaigns and we'll do something different. And so that kind of helps keep things a little bit fresh.
Yeah.
Um, but then some people love GMing, like the Saturday group. Our GM has always been the GM. He and Scott is the forever GM. Although I'd be willing to GM, I'll be completely honest. I'd be completely self conscious, and because Scott does such a great job, I'm like, man,
Yeah.
he and Scott's got that big personality, right? So I'm like,
Oh,
man,
Scott.
he's gonna think I suck.
Oh, you know what? And that's just it. Like me as a very amateur GM, I've only done it a couple times, and they've never been long campaigns at all. Right? I want to do like an in-person campaign, but at the same time, I'm like, I would love to run a game for you guys. One thing, I have no patience with learning Roll20. I don't know why. I just like you ask me, it's like, okay, learn how to do maps. I'm like, no, no. I have more interest in that other system. I
Foundry.
already Foundry. Yeah, that
Yeah.
one looks actually. I really liked it a lot more. It seems a lot more intuitive.
You know what's
Um,
funny though is for me it's a lot harder to do maps on Foundry than it is on Roll20. I was GMing Coriolis for my kids this past Friday, and they were going off the rails, which
yeah,
I fully expected. I mean, the way the last session ended, my wife says, "What do you think they're going to do?" I'm like, "Well, there's two or three options they can do. They can go after this one clue, they could go after revenge, or they could go completely some other place, and I've got to something prepared for that."
yeah.
And they ended up going for revenge, and they're like, "Yeah, we want to go get him at his house." I'm like, "Okay." So I don't have a map for his apartment, so go out and
Let me
find a
fiddle with
map.
that.
And it was taking me like so much longer to set up a map just for that scenario on Foundry, whereas in Roll20 I just drag it onto the desktop and I'm ready to go. So it was
Yeah.
fun. And I will also say, I know Scott wouldn't judge the way that I have in my head that he would,
Oh
but
no,
or if he did, he'd
he
keep it
wouldn't.
quiet. I don't think
I
he's
think
gonna.
there would be a little bit of judgment, but I think that would be more of just like afterwards, people like, I think if you worded it like this, it would be better. Or
Yeah,
if you did it
yeah.
like this, because like Scott
Constructive
has an
feedback.
yeah, like Scott has an ego, but it's well deserved. And I
Yeah,
don't think like, and you hear ego and you think, oh my god, that's a bad thing. But no, he has a well deserved ego. He's a creator. He's done a lot of things. He's ran convention games and everything like that. And you got to have some cojones to do that, because if you don't, you ain't going to do those, right?
yep.
It's like when people tell me, it's like, oh, like to run for president, you need to be a little bit narcissistic, because only a narcissist will believe that he can run an entire country. It's the same kind of thing. Like you kind of need those and I'm not calling Scott a narcissist. That's just I'm making a comparison where you need to have certain kind of traits in order to do certain types of games.
Yeah.
But like I don't think we'll ever get around to it, just because it seems like our scheduling is very difficult. But I actually had a really fun idea for a low life campaign after we talked about it on an episode previously. Um, and I kind of want to say what it is because I don't think we'll ever get a chance to. So this was my idea for, as long as you're cool with it.
Oh, I don't care. And if we end up playing it, I'll probably forget what it was. Heck,
No,
I'm 50.
okay, because low life, you need to have that kind of over the top hokiness. And you mentioned it'll be like, oh, it'd be cool to do low life, but you do it with a Western theme. And I was like, oh, that would be cool. And then I was trying to think of how to do, and I was thinking of cowboy ways, but how to make it hokey, but not just make it a spaghetti Western. And then I said the word spaghetti Western in my mind, and I was like, oh shit, there's something there, especially with dealing with low life. And then I was kind of like thinking of things. I was like, well, what about aliens? It was the Cowboys versus Aliens, that dumb movie that came out. And I was like, what if spaghetti Western, combined with low life mixed with aliens. How could I make that work? And this is what I got, right? So imagine kind of the same story of cowboys versus aliens, except because aliens and low life exist. People, they're not anything
Mm-hmm.
crazy, and any aliens that are not on the planet don't want to come to that planet because it's pretty much
Cesspool.
just a septic. Yeah, it's a septic tank. Um, so my idea was you guys would all be in a town. I would kind of make it so that you all start in the town, and that is your home freaking town. And all of a sudden during the night you'd hear screamings, and you go out and you'd find these monsters, and like they would be able to like shift form and attack you and everything like that. And you'd end up only being able to kill one, and the rest of them will kind of like flock away because whatever reason. I didn't really go through that part. And then you look at it, and the monster itself is actually made, it's red and oozy, and it's made out of all these long strings, which are actually spaghetti. So you'd actually be fighting spaghetti monsters that can also fly and everything like that. And you'd go in this thing, and like there would be one crazy old man. Well, like there would be like a town hall that was called, and there'd be this one crazy man who's kind of an outsider of the town because he's been around a lot, but he kind of decided to settle there. He's like, I've seen this before, and he would totally do the jaws, scratching on the nail board thing to get the attention of the town hall. And he'll talk about how this happened before, and they routed it down to this old ancient building. And so you go on this quest, and along the way, you'd find out that they're taking people, but they're not actually killing them. What they're doing is bringing it there, and they're processing them into more spaghetti. And so the people are becoming sentient killer spaghetti in almost like some sort of weird kind of hive mind kind of thing, right? Yeah, I know, and it gets more off the like. I was planning, like, I'm not going to go crazy into detail with everything, but essentially, once you got to this old ancient building, it's going to be an old Chef Boyardee factory, and you go inside eventually, and you find the big core monster of it all, whose name is Chief Boyard, and he is essentially a living amalgamation of spaghetti, ravioli, and all that stuff, and almost like a giant kind of monster.
It's like a
And his whole, yeah, exactly. And his whole goal was to consume everything, like everything tried to consume him, and turn the world into spaghetti.
That's funny.
Yeah, I thought of it like, and I was like, you know what? I could probably run this campaign and have a lot of fun doing it. I might still try it on a couple people who I've been telling them I want to run a game for a while, and it's just like I haven't, and I don't have any excuses. It's just life, life and shit, and I just keep on like, oh, this one. Like even now, I'm thinking, oh, I want to run the Spire. I want to run the Spire, and I'm like, okay, I just got to convince them to play the Spire, and then I'll have to, that's another story though. But yeah, but that's kind of like way off topic here, who the hell cares? But
just two of us.
Yeah, I know, right? As long as we're having fun, and the audience is having fun. You're having fun, right? Yeah, they said yes. But yeah, I don't know. Going back to our original topic, though, it's hard nowadays, I find, to find a game that's not 5e though.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you'd like to play D&D, finding games should be pretty simple. A lot of the other stuff gets lost in the noise.
Oh yeah.
But if you pay attention, I mean, that heck, that's how I found the Saturday group. Is even though there's a bunch of 5e stuff, I still found a Savage Worlds post. I'm like, hey, I like Savage Worlds. I'll play. I'll see if I can get in this one.
It was kind of the same thing with How I Met You and Scott. In fact, I read the description. I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. Once we got into it and everything like that, I was talking with you guys. So it's like, oh, they seem pretty cool. And then it was like, oh, yeah, we're doing, like, because I heard Eberron and I read the description. I was like, okay, it sounds like kind of like, sci-fi and everything like that. And then, like, it's like, yeah, goblins. Because I didn't know what Eberron was at the time. right? So he was like goblins, everything. I was like, oh shit, is this a fantasy game? I don't know if I'm interested in a fantasy game. So I was thinking to myself, I was like, oh, should I opt out? I was like, no, these guys seem pretty cool. Like, I'll stick with it just to see what happens because I'm kind of enjoying like what's going on here. So, but for like a hot minute, I was thinking, maybe I'll opt out of it, and I'm glad I didn't for obvious reasons. But yeah, shit, like,
I can always forget how young you are.
oh, oh, how old am I now? 33. I'm 34.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm still enough to be your dad.
yeah. Well, honestly though, like I don't know. I think that's another thing that some people get hung up on is because like I have played with some young groups and like they'll like I've played with one where it's like I think the oldest person was 18 and then there was me and I felt my age and that's kind of another thing. Sometimes joining a group if they find out you're older than them sometimes they'll just like almost like shut down in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's like, oh, here's a guy who's supposed to know what they're doing and whatever.
Okay,
I don't know.
grandpa. Nobody knows what they're
Yeah.
doing in life. I think that's something that everyone should understand. If we have any young listeners, which I think actually our average listener is not young from the very minimal amount of information I get. Um, yeah, I don't think we have anyone really under the age of 18. I think most people are actually between the ages of like 25 to 45 in our thing. That's what I got from Spotify because that's the only information you can really get from a lot of places. Oddly enough, but yeah, I don't know. Sometimes, yeah, age sometimes plays a factor, and I'm not too sure why. Because at the end of the day, we're all kind of just here to have the same kind of fun. But
Yeah, well, I think some of it goes to. Well, I would feel uncomfortable, and this is the thing that's funny because we did play originally when we were doing the Eberron game.
yeah,
One of the guys was younger than 18.
yeah, he was 16.
Yeah,
We'll call him Crispy because I think he won his Crispy Burnt Man.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and that was a little odd. And I know that in the games we joked a lot about how his mom was gonna like cut him off of the game because like they're what.
Oh,
But I mean,
gee.
in today's day and age, though, that is a very real concern for some people.
Yeah,
Like
it is.
I would not want to be with a group that is predominantly under the age of 18 simply because then I look like that creepy old guy
Mm-hmm.
that you want to keep your kids away from. And it's like I no, I don't need that in my life. It's like you guys could be a lot of fun, you could be great kids, but I don't need to be that guy.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I have a lot of fun playing with people who are younger,
Yeah.
even younger than you. I've been
There's
in games
people under
with,
the age of 30? Oh my
believe
god.
it or not.
I love how you talk. It's like, yeah, he's just a kid. He's just a kid. And it's kind of funny because I'm right now thinking, like, come on, I'm in my 30s. I have my own house. I have all this stuff. But I remember when I was 18 thinking, it's like, oh, what are you talking about? I'm an adult. What is this? But, like, I get it. I get it. As at my age now, I get it. I still have that feeling of what the hell, I'm like an adult, but at the same time, I understand that my mind frame at 30, 33, 32, something like that. I don't know. It's sad because I actually forgot my birthday last year. Um, yeah.
Well, no, and I will say though, I mean, it's not that I think of you as a kid, um, but in terms of RPGs, there's a lot of things that Scott and I talk about that you're like, I have no idea. I've never heard of
Oh,
that. Like,
100%.
it's like when we start talking about the Satanic Panic back in the 80s and
Yeah.
all the old 80s RPGs and like I'm surprised you had no idea what Eberron was because it's like I remember when that was a D&D, like when Wizards of the Coast produced it. I was like, that looks like a cool game. I'd love to get into that setting, but I never did. And so it's
Yeah.
like I was surprised that people didn't know that was like a D&D
Well,
setting.
like compared to when I even started talking with you guys to now, the amount of knowledge that I've gained from just like talking about these things before the podcast has grown exponentially just because of all the things I'm learning. When you were saying like, oh, you were surprised, because I've only been playing tabletop games for probably under a little bit under 10 years, right? Um, and for me, I started with GURPS, which was a homebrewed system. I didn't really look at too much else. And then I played 5e, and I really did not like. I enjoyed playing with my friends, but I really didn't enjoy the system. I got bored of the fantasy kind of motif, and I kind of just fell off of that. And then pretty much anything to deal with Dungeons and Dragons, I totally ignored. So I just never really. Eberron was a setting with D&D, so I just never really paid attention. I
Yeah,
think I've heard the name, but I just didn't.
didn't associate it.
Yeah, I just didn't like associated it. And so most of the RPGs I was reading were things of like, like Paranoia, which I discovered pretty shortly after that, or what was a few other Blades in the Dark. I learned of, I think before, yeah, Blades in the Dark was before, something like that. And I kind of stumbled upon PBTAs by myself, and the Savage Worlds my friend told me about, and glad he did. And by the way, that's the one who was so inconsiderate to have a second child without talking to me about. Which, and it was all because he lent me his book for not only Savage Worlds but also 50 Fathoms, which still is kind of on my bucket list a little bit. But yeah,
That is a fun setting. I'm not a huge pirates guy,
yeah, me
but
neither.
like
But
one of my friends was GMing that, and I'm like, hey, if you got room, I'd be happy to play with you guys, and we had a really fun time. I mean, the group was great. That fell apart because the GM, his life got complicated, and he could no longer play at the time that we were all available.
yeah.
But it was a fun setting for the period of time that we got to play it. So
Oh, and that's just it. Like it is pirates, but it's kind of like campy pirates, right? And
yeah,
it's one of those ones where I think also you can't take the setting too seriously. You're not playing like God, what's that one pirate game? Seven
Pirates of the
Seas.
Spanish Main.
Yeah,
There's
there's that one. I
also
think.
Seven Seas or something like
Yeah,
that.
and those ones are meant to be a lot more like not authentic pirates, but a little bit more of a serious setting
Yeah.
compared to 50 Fathoms, which my character that I wrote up a character for it. It was that flying race, and essentially he low intelligence, a very very low intelligence, but I did him towards everything explosives, and his whole thing was gliding over top and dropping bombs. But all his plans always involved bombs, and it's like a stealth bomb, and all that he would do is take out his normal bomb and with like paint write the word stealth on it, and that was his plan for it to be stealthy, was to use a stealth bomb or use a distraction bomb, which is still just a normal. And everything of his things, he was just essentially a crazy pyro explosives guy with very low intelligence, but for some reason an idiot savant on this one skill. And yeah, that one, it could have been a lot of fun, as long as, like I said, as long as you don't take it seriously.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, for me, my character was a low intelligence red man. I mean, full on red man. He wasn't like the half.
Yeah.
Maybe he was half. I can't remember. Anyway, he was a red man and low intelligence, and he was the accountant of the ship. Simply because I could carry the money and nobody could take it away from me. So
It's a perfect reason to be an accountant.
yeah, well, it was funny because I mean the character had no intelligence to really speak of. I mean, it's like
A D4.
yeah, seriously, it was a D4, and he only knew that he had a bag of money. And if somebody tried to pickpocket him, which did happen occasionally, he'd kill them and take the money back. And so then, whenever the captain would ask for money, I just give him the money. It's like, okay, here you go. So
The secretary.
yeah,
Or the
the
treasurer.
treasurer. It was a really fun game. I mean,
Yeah.
becoming like we overthrew a brothel because we didn't like the guy that ran the brothel, so he crossed us, and we ended up killing him and taking control of the brothel, and it's just it was a fun game.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, like I think that's one thing why I like talking with you guys though is like you even said with the Satanic Panic, where I knew that like they had a little bit of demonizing, but I didn't realize just from conversations outside of this, we should probably have an episode about the Satanic Panic eventually. But I don't know a lot of these things, and for when you guys talk about them, I'm like, it's something for me to learn, and that's why I think that's one reason why I really like chatting with you guys, because I'm never going to be bored with the conversation. I'm always going to be like, oh my god, I had no idea, and then you guys will make fun of me, but I don't really care. But yeah,
Yep.
yeah, like how many, even on the podcast, like I swear, if anyone out there wants to do little clips of every single time that I made fun of, I would totally be down for that, because you probably have a few, quite a few on that one. Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
to me, I think that's the big thing is if you have a good relationship with the people, that's the important part of the game for me.
No. Oh yeah.
I know that there are
100%.
people out there who was like, I want to be immersed and I want this rich story and that's great. I just know they're not going to fit in with most of the groups that I play with, because like I've had some, heck, I know that's why some of the people have dropped off of the Friday night group that I play with,
Yeah.
because we aren't serious. I mean,
Yeah.
we like to get into character. We like to have good stories come out of it, but we also don't concern ourselves overly much if we stop playing and just BS for like 30 minutes or go off on a tangent for 30 minutes of the game, because we are friends and we have a good time getting caught up. And heck, even like this last game with my kids, the first 30 minutes of the game was nothing but all of them talking with their uncle about video games that they're playing. And I'm like, I sat there in silence because I had nothing to go or nothing to contribute because I don't do video games. But
Yeah.
and that's cool. But it was fun being able to listen to them and see how excited they were getting about the different games and razzing one another about, oh, I can't believe you haven't played that. So I mean, to me, it's that's the fun part, is if you can find a group that you mesh with, um, you found something.
Oh yeah. Like
And that's great.
you've put up with me and Scott talking about video games. I think a few times. Yeah, I think a few.
There've been a few.
You just look at your watch. Well, this is already an hour and a half after we're done recording, and you guys have just been talking about video games for the past 45 minutes. I think I'm going to go to bed tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing left for me here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, and I think that's one thing is like, I think a lot of GMs, they won't almost try, and I don't know. I think it's almost like something like they're almost like not comfortable enough to do it, right? But to be upfront about what you are kind of trying to push out there for your group, right?
yeah.
So, like for yours, you don't want an immersion one, which if you want our opinion on immersion, check out episode 3. But yeah.
But well, and I'll say, it's not that I don't want that. I mean, I think those are fun, but I know that I'm going to feel like an idiot if I'm trying to talk in an accent, because I'm going to do it horribly. Unlike you, who are so skilled with your accent.
Oh yeah, totally. The only accent I can do is freaking Gollum from The Lord of the Rings.
So if you want Santa to do Gollum impersonation for an entire episode, comment below.
Yeah, I need 3 likes on this video. Bars low. 3 likes on this video, and I'll do a Gollum accent. I'll put it up on on this as its own little thing, and I'm not joking. And I hope you guys don't. For the first time ever, I hope you really don't like or comment on that.
There will be two of us that do for sure, and I can get
Oh
one of my
fuck
kids
it!
to do it.
No, 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 no. Kids don't count. Just for that, I'm raising it up. How many kids do you have? Two?
I've got one.
One? Okay.
No.
Just because I know you're lying, five now. Five likes. Oh wait, shit. You can probably convince Scott. Six. There we go.
But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, for me, I would love to be able to play those types of games. There was one group, like when I was playing with my brothers, where they would speak in a Scottish accent. And if everybody else is doing it, it's easy to get into it.
Yeah.
But I generally, especially with people I don't know,
Yep.
it's hard for me to let myself relax enough to do an accent badly. And so it's like I know I'm not going to fit in with a group that we want this, and when we're playing. We don't want out of character conversation, and you're going to talk as your character, and you're going to act like your character. And I'm like, that's too much of a load for me, because I like to be able to joke. I like to be able to have when something strikes us funny to be able. Heck, on the Saturday day games, especially if you're doing a sci-fi game, there's not going to be a session where Star Wars doesn't get referenced
Oh no.
ever.
No. Especially yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. You guys usually do Star Wars references, which I'm not a huge Star Wars guy, so I don't really know. But then you guys are like, "Oh, what about this in 40K?" And I'm just like, "That's incorrect. I know exactly what I'm talking about here. You are incorrect on this thing. I may not be an expert on the lore, but I definitely listened to Lorehammer for quite a long time." Yeah. No. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, it's fun. So I
Yeah.
know that I'm not going to fit into a group that wants a lot of in character conversation and no joking, and the groups that take themselves what I would consider too seriously. They're not going to be for me. So I tend to just not post on those. But I mean, that's the great thing is, like I said earlier, with this day and age, you can find a group that matches your
Your
personality.
personality, yeah.
You may have to sift through a bunch of crap. I've been lucky to where I've not. I mean, every time I found a game that really sounded interesting to me, I was able to get in, and and perhaps that's because I don't play 5e. Maybe it's because I post on Savage Worlds games where you don't have 20 people all clamoring for the 3 spots or the 4 spots in the game.
You might actually have something there, because yeah, I don't like. I've never done a 5e game online, but every single time you like, I don't. Do you ever listen to like the YouTube videos that actually do like the horror stories from the tabletop, like tabletop and all that?
Nope.
Oh, though, yeah, I listen to those. And it's essentially just people who talk about their horror stories for the table thing. And every single time, it is almost always 5e. Every time. I've never heard one from Shadowrun. Actually, no, I think I've heard one from Shadowrun. Nothing from Savage Worlds ever. Nothing from like all those. It seems to always be revolve around 5e. And I don't know if it's just because the mass population plays it, so of course you're going to have a lot more of the worst, or what it is about that at all. Actually, I don't know.
Well, now, I mean, depending on what you mean by horror stories. I don't consider this a horror story. The GM may. My Friday group, we brought somebody in. They wanted to play, and so we brought them in, and they played with us for a little bit. And they're like, "Hey, I really want to run a Twilight 2000 game for Savage Worlds. I've got some homebrew rules that I want to use to make it a little bit grittier and this sort of stuff." He changed quite a bit of the character creation rules, which were like, okay, whatever. But he GM'd for me and my 2 friends who've been gaming together for, at that point, it was like 10 or 15 years. and he really built up how much or how gritty it was going to be, how dangerous it was going to be. And we listened and we're like, okay, great. We're happy to play this. And I mean, like, we got like one Benny or maybe two to start instead of the full three. But when you tell us that, we're still goofers. So we're going to go off and just be stupid. Like, two of us built drunks. Like, my character was a doc who was a complete alcoholic, and then the sniper was a complete alcoholic as well. And we have like this portable still that we use to, typically it's supposed to be used to make like your alcohol for your vehicles, but we used it to make hooch.
Booze.
And we're dragging along, and he gave us like a Humvee. He gave us a motorcycle. So we had our one friend who's on the motorcycle out scouting, and we find the encounter, and it's like a bridge area that we need to cross, and there's like a ton of guards, more than they outnumber us quite a bit, but because he was out scouting, he was able to come back, and so we stopped far enough back. We all coordinated our attacks really well, and we took that encounter out within 5 minutes. Because I mean, our dice were hot that night, and we had great tactics. And after that game, he never showed up again. we're like, dude, don't get mad. Just because we can drop mortars where we want, and because we've got a sniper that can hit the broadside of a barn if you give them enough advanced warning, it's like, come on.
I think that's another reason why sometimes games kind of go south is the GM has a very specific idea of how their game's going to go.
Yeah.
And players don't care. They will do what they want.
Well, yes. Well, and also, I mean, as GMs, if we have a story in mind, sometimes we have to railroad the players, or we have to give them reasons to go where you want them to go. In this particular game, he wanted us to go one direction, but the direction he wanted us to go was a hot zone. And we're like, we don't want to go to war. You've already told us, one, that it's a dangerous world.
Yeah.
And the armies are all broken. And so just because that's where we're supposed to go, no, we're going to go the exact opposite direction because that's the only safe place. You told us that
doesn't sound smart.
Yeah, it's like that you've told us that this is the only safe route. Why would we go into danger when we can go out of danger? It's like, come on. So you give us a reason to go into that danger. There has to be more danger in other areas that would entice us to go that direction. Say, oh, you know what? We might have a chance there, whereas these other three directions, forget it. We're hosed. But no, he gave us a way out. So we have a rule on that Friday night group, and that is no campaign plan survives contact with your players, because we always unintentionally, I mean, even when we're trying to, like with Scott's game, he presented a scenario. I don't think that he necessarily wanted me to go down into that crypt with that with that crypt key, but I did it anyways. One, because I felt that's what my character would do, especially after I got that answer from the god. But also in my head as a player, I'm like going, he's got something prepared here. And so if he's got something prepared, I don't want him to have prepared something for no reason. So I'm going to go. So I was a well-intentioned player that ended a campaign.
Yeah. That was a death of the ages. When we like, and even like that death scene though, it's like, since like, okay, this is one thing I'm going to have to give towards Dungeon World, is because, it was kind of loose, like we described our actions and all that. The fight scene at the end was pretty badass.
It was fun. It was a
lot of fun. I like describing what we're doing, and Scott's just like, you could tell in his voice, he's like, don't do this. Don't do this. And every time we're like, okay, we're going deeper in. We're going deeper in. We're going deeper in. And it just didn't it didn't work out. It was a ton of fun,
awesome.
though. Yeah.
I've gotten to where I almost like my characters to die.
Well, this is something because we also had more characters die, not last weekend, but the weekend before. And
that was an epic fight too, man. That was awesome.
That was that was an epic curb stomp. We got curb stomped. I died
but we won.
So quickly.
But we won.
Well, technically, no. We won that fight, but we lost the rest of it. But I think the funny thing is like I remember because the wifey was going over to her parents, right, on that day, and she was like before she's like, okay, don't die, make sure your character doesn't die. She was just saying that in jest, and then she came back and was like, yeah, we all died. She's like, really? I was like, and I was like, yeah. I was like, I can't believe I died. I think before this year, I'm just talking 2022. I think I've had one character die in total, and in 2022, I think I've had a total of 4 characters die. It's one a month, literally one a month.
That body count will go up with the Saturday group because all we seem to do is get ourselves killed.
Well, yeah. I'm just glad Cyberpunk Red doesn't have a kill on character creation like Traveler or anything like that. But I already our GM. I don't think I should have said his name, but
you can edit that out.
Yeah, I can edit it out. He made a joke because I made a comment. I forget what it was, but he's like, "Yep," and then your character dies from a gunshot to the head. And I remember you saying, "Well, died in character creation." I was like, "Yeah." I forget what the comment was. It was freaking hilarious, though. Or at least I think it was funny.
Well, it could have been related to 5e because I know that he absolutely hates 5e.
No, something to do with... I know it had something to do with Cyberpunk, and I made a joke about something with your computer hacking software stuff. That's all I remember. I don't know. I make a lot of jokes, and like... I should really just go with the George Costanza thing where, like I do one really good joke and then I know I'm done for the day and I should just dip out.
That's funny.
Oh, yeah. But anyways, RP people, I think that's all the time we had for today. I hope you guys enjoyed our candid conversation here. Nothing really too planned, but I had fun. Finder, did you have fun?
Of course.
See, and that's why we're grouped together, because we have fun. If you like this episode, you can email us at rpsmartpeople@gmail.com. If you have any horror stories, or even just tell us about how long your group's actually been together. Some good stories. We don't need just horror stories. And if you have some bad, and if you didn't like this episode, or you have anything mean to say, you can message us on Twitter at rpsmartpeople. I hope you have a good week, and I'll see you next time.
Be sure to like and subscribe, or like the comments so we can get to Gollum impersonation.
Yeah, if I get 10 likes on this video on Podbean...
The number keeps going up. It was 6.
Yeah, I know, because I really don't want to do it. If I get 10 likes specifically on the Podbean app, I will do a Golem voice. I will release a special 5-minute episode where I am talking like Golem about whatever the topic you guys want. As long as it's nothing pervy and nothing that'll get me banned, I will talk about it.
Gollum doesn't like the sex moves.
Golem does not like the sex moves. That is 100%. Anyways, folks, 10 likes, and I'll have it done. Talk to you later. And now a special word from the friends of the podcast.
We're going to give it another go. It's a bit more zing. A bit of zing. Zing. Yeah. Ready? Hello. With a hello. No. Hello. Wait till I get through the whole thing. Ready? Hello with a billowing hilltop.
Hello.
Oh dear.
Waiting to get through the whole thing.
No. I mean,
I thought that was the whole thing.
The whole thing is hello with a billowing hilltop. Okay, that's the whole thing. Yeah?
Okay.
That
was right.
That pretty much sums up the show. But if you want to find out any more, you can visit us at www.billowinghilltop.com. Is it com? Does anybody know?
.org.
Is it?
It's.com.
What do we do? What do we play?
There's monsters.
Does anybody remember?
Walking around.
I don't know.
And, yeah.
We will be delighted if you were to join us around our table as we play Dungeons. Is it 5th edition? Hello?
Yeah, we think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. We
What
play
was that
Dungeons
noise
and Dragons.
In the background?
Sorry, that was me.
What was that noise in the background? There will be noises in the background as we play Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition through the classic Paizo adventure path, The Age of Worms. You can expect this. No! Quite a bit of this.
I'm completely lost.
This. This.
Got a bugbear in my underpants.
And one of these.
Oh dear.
We're on Apple Podcasts and we're on Spotify and we're on TuneIn, and you can find us on Twitter and you can find us on Facebook. And we hope you join us. Thanks very much.
Task Force Raven, coming to you May 4th. Brought to you by Scott W. and the Rune Forge.
Flash message. Eyes only. Burn. War note. During the events of Operation Bellhammer, an agency asset, codenamed Angel Spike, went off-grid on or about 30-22-45-18 Zulu. Angel Spike is believed to be in OP4 hands. Raven is directed to Halo insertion into AOR. Locate Angel Spike. Exfil immediately from AOR. The ROE for UCOM are in place. Heavy resistance is expected to include known occult interference. Route path, Sakir, CJ Soda, Emerald Dune. Eyes only. Burn. Occultum Proelium. Well, you made it to this page and halted. Glad to have you on board. If you've asked, what the hell is Task Force Raven? Again, good to have you. That's the type of forward-leaning warrior we look for in recruitment. So what is your role while assigned to Raven? The answer is in our motto, Occultum Proelium, the hidden battle. The short answer, we undertake those missions of high value, but of minuscule intelligence in the most remote and denied areas of responsibility. The long answer, the world is far more dangerous than 99.99% understand. Even among the best of the best, including those read into the highest special access programs, there is little knowledge of the issues needing to be confronted. Cults and cryptids. Raven was born in late 2002 after the events of Operation Mountain Breaker, otherwise known as the Giant of Kandahar. Again, welcome to the team.
Would you like to know more? Then check out the Kickstarter starting on May 4th. Task Force Raven.